in 2 decades. Shame, Labor, shame. And Kim Carr, the Education Minister, who we'll be paying a visit to later today, came out last week to say that after much reassessment, they couldn't possibly reverse these cuts. They just could not find the money. That's bullshit, and we've called this demo here today because we know that all of the so-called equivocating from the Labor Party was bullshit because they've been committed to a neoliberal agenda to cutting our education since they took office in 2007, and these cuts are just the latest in that. We want these cuts reversed. We want to tell Abbott and Rudd that we will not tolerate these cuts. We want not just to reverse these cuts, but we want more funding for education. And we want less funding, no funding, towards disgusting policies like the PNG so-called solution, which is about imprisoning and torturing innocent refugees. And we don't just want more funding, we want to bring back free education in this country. Every single scumbag politician sitting up there in Canberra deciding what they will cut, how severe they will make these cuts, every single one of them went to university for free. And now, we want the same.
Before I get started, $2.8 billion cuts, ain't nobody got time for that shit. Education is a right and not a fucking privilege. They would have us believe that these cuts are necessary. I call bullshit on that one. Bullshit. Spend a semester, Mr. Rudd, as a single parent and then tell me that these cuts are necessary. Compare your spending on higher education to spending in the Defence Force and then tell me if these cuts are necessary. Speak to every single student, lecturer, tutor, student support officer who will be forced to look for other work and other alternatives. Look us all in the eye and tell us that these cuts are still necessary, you bastard!
If students aren't having their voices heard, no one will stand up for us. No one cares about us. We are always forgotten by the university, by the government, and we need to stand together and fight these cuts. These cuts are anti-Labor, they are anti-student, and they are not what we stand for as a student movement, and we need to stand proud and tall together today. We stand in solidarity with staff striking, and it's absolutely deplorable that universities are not giving their students the full information about why staff are striking. Staff are striking because the universities are trying to fuck them over, which means we're getting fucked over, because if we don't have staff that are adequately looked after, then we don't get looked after. No one else cares. We need to stand together and we need to fight these cuts.
My dad was the first person in his immediate family to go to university. His dad before him worked in the post office all his life, and his mum did unpaid work raising the kids, as many women of that generation did. And some of my earliest political memories are watching my dad shout at the television every time the Liberals came on, saying, "Don't these guys understand what it's like for people who are doing it tough, and that we have to have a society where people are looked after and the size of your bank balance doesn't determine where you end up or what opportunities you have." And I went to university, and when I went to university, I was lucky enough that the cost of my rent in the 3-bedroom house that we were sharing was half of my Austudy then, and I could work 1 shift a week at the uni bar and have plenty to live on. And I still have proudly on my wall the shot of me at one of my first demonstrations with my best early 90s Dawson's Creek haircut, standing out the front of a politician's office in front of a banner saying, "Stop the ALP loan scheme." And this battle that we're fighting is one that's been fought for quite some time now, and as you've heard, education is becoming more and more expensive in this country, that it's getting to the point where it is increasingly a privilege and an inquiry into one of my bills that I moved in Parliament, I heard from someone who had worked at the same university in the same area for 10 years and never been entitled to 1 day of sick leave in all the time that she was there because they kept her on casual all the way through. And she was saying that as a result of being in that situation, they had to put off getting married and having kids. The pressure that students and staff and universities are under means that the system is at breaking point. What's better, giving Gina Reinhardt a tax break or making sure that every child in this country can go to university? What's better, spending billions of dollars on harsh offshore refugee detention centres, putting people in prison and wrecking their lives, or making sure that everyone who works in a university educating our kids gets decent wages and conditions and that our universities are amongst the best in the world, not struggling to make ends meet?
So already union members across the country, and many of you here today, pay your union dues, and they go towards increasing the minimum wage every single year. And those union dues go to increasing awards every single year to help the lowest paid workers in this country. We can address the issues facing the Australian workforce and so many young people and graduates in this country. We can address casualisation, we can address insecure work and attacks on our workplace rights by Tories. We can do this by all of you here today and those of you who are not yet union members by choosing to join your union. If you're already a member of your union, talk to your colleagues and your friends about why union membership is important in your workplace. But union membership is just as important for all of Australian society. If you're a progressive, you should join your union. If you care about social justice and equality, you need to join your union. There is no other vehicle for creating change in a workplace or creating change and equalising power between workers and their employers without joining unions. We can only achieve this by workers sticking together in a workplace, in an industry, in a state, in a country, so we can take steps to achieve a more equal society.
The proportion of government funding in higher education is down around just over 40%. Public universities should be publicly funded. At the moment, who's paying more and more? The students are paying more and more in HECS. And what did Christopher Pyne say today? I'm sure you want to know what Christopher Pyne said today. It makes me choke every time. But the latest grant scheme is that they want to make some changes to the post-graduation visas for international students, which is all well and good. But his reasoning for it is so more international students will come and make up the funding gap in universities instead of the government paying. And the other great plan that we've heard from Tony Abbott, not that he said much about higher ed at all, so we're very, very suspicious. The other thing that they have talked about is fund universities with philanthropy. We're not a charity. We have to stand together as staff and students in our student unions, in our staff unions, and be together and to fight back. At the moment, we are trying to get decent enterprise agreements. Why do we want decent enterprise agreements? Because as staff, as workers, we deserve decent pay and conditions. But why do we work in universities? We actually work in universities because they matter. Your education matters. We will stand together with you, and with you, the students, the staff and students will stand together. Don't let the Vice-Chancellors pull us apart. Don't let the politicians divide us.
I'm going to tell you one thing. I'm going to tell you clear. 4 words. We have had enough. Decade after decade of funding cuts and neoliberal attacks on our education system has got to stop. It stops now. We staff in the university sector have been the front line of resistance of attack after attack after attack. We refuse to be used as the human band-aids to stretch over the ever-widening cracks in a broken education system.